Imagine, you were accused of poisoning after you simply urinated in front of witnesses, or that you became queen for 3 minutes and then you were executed. Today, 10 shocking stories about queens that were definitely not included in the school curriculum. Story 1. Mary Stuart, from urination to the guillotine. Mary Stuart is one of the most famous women of the 16th century, but her life is more of a tragedy than a romantic story. She became Queen of Scotland at the age of just 6 days when her father, King James V, died suddenly. Even then, fate seemed to foreshadow a difficult path for her. Mary lost 2 of her newborn children, one 2 months after birth, the other 15 days after birth. But in the end, she gave birth to a son, James. However, he grew up to be a cruel man, a traitor, a murderer, a lawbreaker. At one point, Mary had to order the execution of her own son, but that was not the end of her nightmare. In 1567, she married her cousin Henry Darnley. This marriage was a real disaster. Henry quickly realized that he would not be given real power and began to plot against his wife. He even enlisted the support of her own brother. The conspiracy failed, and Darnley himself was found dead after an explosion at a friend's house. Suspicions fell on Mary and her lover, the Italian courtier David Rizzio. To prove her innocence, Mary agreed to an absurd ritual. 5 men had to watch her urinate. Yes, that's right. The purpose? To check if there were any traces of poison on her body or in her urine. They checked the temperature of her urine. If it was too hot, it meant she had recently drunk something suspicious. Of course, they found nothing, but that did not save Mary. She fled to England, where she spent 18 years in prison. In the end, Elizabeth I ordered her execution for participating in a conspiracy against the throne. Story 2. Lady Jane Grey, queen for just 3 minutes. Now imagine a girl who is only 17 years old. She never wanted to be queen. She didn't know how to rule. But one morning she was told, "You are the Queen of England." This happened in 1553, when the dying King Edward VI decided to pass the throne not to his sister Mary, but to Lady Jane Grey, his distant relative. Jane was essentially caught between Protestants and Catholics who were fighting for power. But soon Mary's supporters seized London, and after only 9 days, Jane renounced the throne. But she couldn't just disappear. A few months later, she was executed on charges of treason. Interesting fact, although her reign lasted only 9 days, historians consider her the Queen of England. One of her advisors claimed that she ruled in fact for only 3 minutes, while officials were drawing up documents. Story 3. Cleopatra was proclaimed queen at the age of 14, but did not begin to rule until she was 21. Cleopatra VII. Philopator, the last active ruler of Egypt from the Ptolemaic dynasty, was born in 69 BC. Her father, Ptolemy X, decided that she should inherit the throne when she was only 14 years old. However, the Egyptian nobility did not accept this decision, believing that she was too young and inexperienced to rule. Instead, the country was ruled by advisors while Cleopatra lived away from the court. Everything changed in 48 BC when she met the Roman general Julius Caesar. With his support, Cleopatra regained power, expelling her rivals and establishing control over Egypt. They had a son, Caesarion, whom many saw as the future ruler. After Caesar's assassination in 44 BC, Cleopatra formed an alliance with Mark Antony, who became her lover and co-ruler. Their army lost the war to Octavian, the future Emperor Augustus, and they decided to commit suicide. According to legend, Cleopatra placed a poisonous snake on her arm to avoid capture. Thus ended the story of the great queen who was able to unite 2 powerful empires, Egypt and Rome. Story 4. Queen Elizabeth, the Queen Mother, remained at Buckingham Palace during the bombings. During World War II, London was constantly bombed by German aircraft. Many advised the royal family to evacuate to a safe place, but Queen Elizabeth firmly stated, "I cannot go anywhere. People will look down on me." She remained at Buckingham Palace even when bombs were falling nearby. The palace was damaged several times. But she did not leave. Together with her husband, King George VI, she visited the affected areas and supported citizens and soldiers, becoming a symbol of the resilience and strength of the British people. Her husband also remained with her, despite pressure from the government. Their example played an important role in maintaining the country's morale during the most difficult years of the war. Story 5. Marie Antoinette received the wrong royal jewels at her wedding. When 15-year-old Austrian Princess Marie Antoinette married the French Dauphin Louis Auguste, the future Louis XVI, in 1770, everything was supposed to be perfect. It was an important political move, an alliance between Austria and France. But on the day of the wedding, a scandal erupted. She was given provincial royal jewels intended for use outside the capital. This was perceived as an insult. She wore an inappropriate necklace and veil, which caused gossip among the courtiers. This incident was the first warning sign that this marriage could end in tragedy. 20 years later, both were defeated in the French Revolution and executed. Marie Antoinette was never able to justify the trust of her people, becoming a symbol of luxury and detachment from reality. Story 6. The most famous medieval art object remained unfinished. Lady Shallot is one of Hans Holbein the Younger's most famous works, commissioned personally by Henry VIII. This huge painting was supposed to be part of the decor of Westminster Palace and symbolize chivalric ideals. Work began in 1526, but it was never completed. There were many reasons for this: the artist's death in 1543, religious reforms, and the destruction of many works of art. Today, only fragments of this work remain, which are considered a masterpiece. They give an idea of the scale of the project and Holbein's skill. Interestingly, the painting is based on the legend of King Arthur, which shows how strongly the English crown sought to associate itself with myths of nobility and honor. Story 7. Vermeer's painting belongs to another woman. Girl in Blue is one of John Vermeer's most famous paintings. For a long time, it was believed to be a portrait of his wife or one of his daughters. However, modern research has shown that the face belongs to another woman, Maria Luba de Culu, the mistress of the artist's patron. Analysis under the paint layer showed that the artist originally created one image and then completely rewrote the face, adding the features of another woman. This change indicates that the painting was made to order, possibly as a gift. This discovery overturned the understanding of the painting and showed that Vermeer worked not only for the general public, but also for influential individuals. Story 8. A scandal between a countess and a queen nearly ruined the country. In 1285, a high-profile conflict arose between Countess Margaret of Burgundy and Queen Isabella of France. After Margaret insulted the Queen, Isabella demanded that the Countess be stripped of all her titles and sent back to Burgundy. Margaret's brother, Count Guy de Dampierre, refused. He did not want his sister to be humiliated. As a result, a 7-year war broke out between Flanders and France. Thousands of people died, the treasury was emptied, and the country was on the verge of bankruptcy. Eventually, peace was restored, but Margaret's reputation was never recovered. This incident shows how one word could lead to a real catastrophe. Story 9. The Queen of Spain died from stab wounds on Christmas Day. Isabella of Castile ruled Spain together with Ferdinand of Aragon. It was their marriage that led to the unification of the country. But in 1492, her own brother, Alfonso, attacked her on Christmas night. He burst into her bedroom with a dagger and stabbed her several times. Isabella died 2 days later. The motive remains a mystery. Some historians say it was jealousy, others say it was the influence of his mistress, Princess Juana. This incident shocked the whole of Spain and became a turning point in the country's history. Story 10. Queens of ancient Egypt were not allowed to speak. In ancient Egypt, queens were often depicted with their mouths closed, symbolizing silence. According to one version, this is associated with the cult of the goddess Hathor, who was depicted without a mouth as a symbol of her connection with the heavens. But there were exceptions. For example, Nefertiti. In some frescoes, She is depicted with her mouth open, which speaks to her influence and power. It is believed that the ban on women's speech existed to control women and limit their influence in society. Over time, this practice disappeared, and women began to play a more active role in the governance of the state.